Jeffrey Dahmer, Part 3.
Late 20s and early 30s. Subsequent murders.
Ambassador Hotel. On November 20, 1987, Dahmer, who was living with his grandmother in West Allis at the time, met Stephen Twomey, a 25-year-old man from Ontonagon, Michigan, in a bar. He talked Twomey into going back to the Ambassador Hotel in Milwaukee, where Dahmer had rented a room for the night. Dahmer said that he didn't plan to kill Twomey, but rather to give him drugs and lie next to him while he looked at his body. The next morning, though, Dahmer woke up to find Twomey lying under him on the bed with bruises black and blue and his chest crushed in. Dahmer had blood coming out of the corner of his mouth, and his fists and one forearm were badly bruised. Dahmer said he didn't remember killing Twomey, and he told investigators later that he couldn't believe this had happened. Dahmer bought a big suitcase and took Twomey's body to his grandmother's house so that he could get rid of it. After a week, he cut off the head, arms, and legs from the torso, took the bones out of the body, and cut the meat into pieces that were easy to handle. Dahmer then put the meat in trash bags made of plastic. He put the bones in a sheet and used a sledgehammer to break them up into small pieces. Dahmer spent about 2 hours on the whole process of tearing people apart. He threw away everything that was left of Twomey except for the severed head. Twomey's head was wrapped in a blanket and kept by Dahmer for a total of 2 weeks after he killed him. After 2 weeks, Dahmer boiled the head in a mixture of Soilax, an industrial detergent with an alkaline base, and bleach in order to keep the skull, which he then used to stimulate his erections. After a while, this bleaching process made the skull too fragile, so Dahmer broke it up and threw it away.
Intermediate incidents.
After killing Twomey, Dahmer went out of his way to find more victims. Most of them were gay men he met in or near gay bars, and he usually got them to come to his grandmother's house. He would give triazolam or temazepam to his victims before or soon after getting sexual with them. After giving his victims sleeping pills to make them sleepy, he strangled them to death. 2 months after killing Twomey, Dahmer met a 14-year-old Native American male prostitute named James Dockstader. Dahmer offered the boy $50 to come to his house and pose for naked photos. At Dahmer's house in West Allis, the two men had sexual relations before Dahmer drugged Dockstader and strangled him on the floor of the cellar. Dahmer left Dockstader's body in the cellar for a week before cutting it up in a similar way to how he did with Twomey. He threw away everything that was left of Dockstader except for his head. The skull was boiled and cleaned with bleach before Dahmer realized that the process had also made it fragile. 2 weeks later, he crushed the head. On March 24, 1988, Dahmer met Richard Guerrero, a bisexual man who was 22 years old, outside a gay bar called the Phoenix. Dahmer lured Guerrero to his grandmother's house, offering him $50 to spend the rest of the night with him. He then gave Guerrero sleeping pills and strangled him with a leather strap, then had oral sex with the corpse. Within 24 hours, Dahmer had cut Guerrero. On April 23, Dahmer got Ronald Flowers Jr. to come to his house. After giving Flowers some drugged coffee, Dahmer and Flowers heard Dahmer's grandmother call, "Is that you, Jeff?" Dahmer's answer made his grandmother think he was alone, but he wasn't. Dahmer couldn't kill Flowers because of this, so he waited until Flowers passed out before taking him to the County General Hospital. In September 1988, Dahmer's grandmother asked him to leave. This was mostly because he drank too much, brought young men to her house late at night, and sometimes made the basement and garage smell bad. Dahmer found a one-bedroom apartment at 808 North 24th Street and moved in on September 25. 2 days later, he was arrested for drugging and sexually touching a 13-year-old boy he had lured to his home, with the promise of taking pictures of him naked. Gerald Boyle was the lawyer that Dahmer's father hired to defend his son. Boyle asked for Dahmer to go through a series of psychological tests before his upcoming court dates. These evaluations showed that Dahmer had strong feelings of being alone. A second evaluation 2 months later showed that Dahmer was impulsive, suspicious of other people, and disappointed by how little he had done in his life. His probation officer also told the court that Dahmer had been diagnosed with schizoid personality disorder in 1987. On January 30, 1989, Dahmer pleaded guilty to second-degree sexual assault and luring a child for immoral purposes. His sentencing for the assault was put off until May. On March 20, Dahmer started a 10-day Easter break from work and moved back into his grandmother's house. 2 months after he was convicted and 2 months before he was sentenced for the sexual assault, Dahmer killed his fifth victim, Anthony Sears, a 24-year-old mixed-race aspiring model he met at a gay bar on March 25, 1989. Dahmer says that on this particular day, he wasn't planning to do anything wrong. However, just before the store closed that night, Sears just started talking to me, he claimed. Dahmer got Sears to go to his grandmother's house, where they had oral sex before Dahmer gave Sears drugs and strangled him. The next morning, Dahmer put the body in his grandmother's bathtub and cut off the head before trying to flay it. He stripped the body of its flesh and crushed the bones, which he then threw away. Dahmer said he found Sears exceptionally attractive, and Sears was the first victim whose body parts he kept for good. He put Sears' head and genitalia in acetone and put them in a wooden box, which he later put in his work locker. The next year, when he moved, he took the remains with him. Dahmer was sentenced on May 23, 1989, to 5 years of probation and 1 year in the House of Correction. He was allowed to work release so that he could keep his job. He also had to sign up as a sex offender. Dahmer was let out of the work camp 2 months before he was supposed to leave. His 5-year probation from 1989 started at this point. When he got out, he moved back in with his grandmother in West Allis for a while.